York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, 12 Days of Fitness podcast. New York Muscle Radio is flooding your feed. We're bringing back all the classic episodes we've ever done. So today's episode, we're discussing Steroids 101 with Scott McNally. What's up, guys? If you're a new listener, welcome to the best muscle building radio show ever. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Feliz Navidad Kacharian. What's up there, big guy? What's going on?
We're bringing back the juice for Christmas, man.
Yeah, I think for, search engine optimization terms, we should just title this episode, How to Take Steroids.
Oh, we would get triple the downloads easily.
Triple. Then we'd make it to iTunes #1 in no time with that.
Should we go that route? Should we start with the clickbait? No, that's not our style.
Oh, thanks for answering your own question. Really quick, man, I'm curious. Why is it that you like that song, Feliz Navidad? You gave us like a half-ass answer last time. Why is that?
Well, you know the answer, but you just want me to talk about it on the radio show. So since you like pulling some entertainment out of Big Pete's life and memories and whatever else I got going on, I'll tell you where this came from. And I actually said this on the last podcast. That song reminded me of my childhood because of all the Christmas TV shows and stuff that had it playing in the background. But you know what? I'll be very specific here because Anthony found the specifics funny. That was from a Sesame Street special where Big Bird went ice skating. It was one of my favorite things as a kid to watch during Christmas time. I believe I had it on VHS. Actually, it was probably recorded on VHS.
Some people listening to this are like, what's VHS?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
All right, wait, back to Big Bird.
Yeah, so it was Big Bird dancing on ice. Big Bird ice skating to Feliz Navidad.
The funny thing is, as soon as you said it, I knew the clip.
Yeah, you've seen it too.
Yeah, but it's just, and I agree that when I hear that song, I kind of think of that, but it doesn't like come up right away.
To me,
instantly,
it does.
You're like, oh my god, I love that song.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that's what I used to watch.
This song on.
Yeah, well, you asked me, you said, which Christmas song do you want to play? I said, Feliz Navidad.
I didn't even finish the sentence, and it was already out of your mouth.
Hey, man, it was one of my favorite things to watch as a kid.
Sesame Street?
No, like during Christmas time, like that's what I would watch. I'd want to watch Sesame Street ice skating to Feliz Navidad. I don't know. Everybody's got something they like. To this day, probably I like two things now to watch on Christmas Eve. I like to watch Home Alone, and I like to watch Christmas Story.
Which Home Alone do you like to watch on Christmas?
Probably the second one.
I know, but the first one was Christmas too, and
yeah.
I agree with you. I like Home Alone, both of them, 1 and 2. But I always feel like the first one's Christmas too. They never play that one. It's always the second one that they play.
Yeah, the second one, I think they definitely put more Christmas elements into it than the first one.
Did they?
I felt like there was, yeah. I mean, because they even had it at Rockefeller Center, with Trump the tree and everything. Yeah, Trump was in it,
Such a random thing. That was inside his hotel, wasn't it?
Yeah. Plaza. Well, no, it was a Plaza Hotel, actually.
So why was he in it? How did Trump end up in that movie?
I don't know. Interesting, actually. But you know what? Hillary wasn't there helping Kevin.
Yeah, it was. All right, man. Don't even get started with the politics. We're really gonna lose half our listeners.
I know. We already lost.
The other half is Republicans.
Yeah.
And then you have Lane who listens, who's a libertarian, who says anyone can do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Well, I didn't see Johnson there either helping him.
Your Johnson. Well, what about your Johnson?
He wouldn't be talking to little Kevin.
Pete, you're on a roll today, man. Lately, these last couple podcasts, I love it, man. I'm pulling out the inner.
You're getting me going, man. You never let me sit and be comfortable and mind my own business. So this is what you get.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Well, don't forget our December sale is live. We're doing a special for December. You're gonna get a bottle of our coffee and all our New York Muscle Radio library. For one low price. So head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com to check that out. And also, guys, if you haven't, subscribe to our YouTube channel because in the new year, big things are coming. NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/video. Man, Oh, I want to laugh a little bit. Jeremy Ryan Slate, who we had on the podcast, I kind of feel like we inspire him a little bit because every time we do something, he kind of does it too. So the other day I noticed that he wrote, "Oh, would anyone want a live portion to my podcast?" I'm like, man, it's just funny. I think it's funny how like you start doing something and other people start copying you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the internet is a very easy place for you to have access to see what other people are doing all the time. And especially if you're friends with people on Facebook, you always see what other people are doing. So it's, I'm not going to say people steal stuff from each other, but they definitely borrow ideas.
But you know what? To tell you the truth, where did I come up with getting a video podcast? I never watched a video podcast.
No, I haven't.
I don't know where I came up with it. I didn't see it anywhere. I don't watch any video podcasts.
No. Well, I guess you were the first one to come up with it.
No, I'm definitely not.
Someone listening is going to disagree, though.
Yeah, I'm sure, but listen, whatever. I always feel like I'm thinking ahead.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you're always trying to think ahead, so we always try to come up with new stuff. Sometimes it's already been done and we don't realize it, though.
So I want to move on to the trending topics, New York Muscle Radio's trending topics. So I was watching Shark Tank before. I was trying to put my daughter to bed, and I DVR Shark Tank. I happen to like Shark Tank. I think it's a great show, and they had on this product called Simply Fit boards. You know what that is? You ever see that?
No.
All right. Can you Google it quick while I talk about it?
Yeah, let me Google it.
Oh, wait. He can't do two things at once. I can't have him listen to me and Google.
I'm going to hear about maybe 50% of what you're saying, but you could go ahead.
Okay. Big Pete is an asshole. You got it?
You said it was Simply Fit boards, right?
Whatever. Anyway, so there's this product, right, that these two women developed. It's like a middle-aged woman and her mom, right? So they developed this product that you step on it, you put one foot on each side, and you twist. You ever see
I'm looking at it now.
The dance, do the twist?
Yes.
And you do the twist, and you twist. That's literally what the exercise thing is, right? So it's basically looks kind of like a skateboard. You step on it.
Looks like a hoverboard from Back to the Future.
That's exactly what it looks like. And then you just twist. So the hoverboard is able to glide on the floor and you just twist.
That. Yeah.
And supposedly this works your core, whatever. So now, aside from price or anything, what is your take on that type of a product?
I think it's a gimmick.
Okay, well, why is it a gimmick?
Because it's another one of those things where they're trying to make it so that you could sit in your house and just look at the TV and twist, and you're going to burn calories.
Okay. They did $9 million in sales.
I'm sure they did.
$9 million since taking over on Shark Tank. $9 million. I believe it's like a year. $9 million, dude.
I see it. And they're $39 individual, each one.
Dude, what the fuck are we doing wrong?
I'll tell you what, we're not offering people a magic pill. That's what we're doing wrong. If we wanted to be rich, we would have to offer the magic pill.
Yeah, man, but
take this hoverboard and just go left and right in front of your TV. You'll lose weight.
Dude, $9 million. You know how many zeros that is?
It's more than I ever counted in one time.
Higher than you can go up to.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe $9 million in sales over something that retarded.
It's a piece of plastic.
It just goes to show you where the information in this world in this day and age is. It's a little scary actually too if you really think about it,
Well, the fact is, and some people might be insulted by me saying this, but others might agree that
we don't care here.
A lot of these people, especially in the fitness industry, they market to people that aren't really that intelligent. Because most people that do want to lose weight that are overweight, not to say they're not intelligent, but they're not informed.
You just called people dumb. You just called every person who ever bought something off an infomercial dumb.
Have you ever bought anything off an infomercial?
No.
Then you must not be dumb.
Although, you know what I want to buy?
You didn't even let me finish my sentence, but let's...
Hold on. You know that Flex Seal thing? In the infomercial, I'm sure you've seen it, where he sprays that it's like a rubber coating on things, and he sprays like the boat, and then he goes in the water with it?
Yeah.
I want to just buy it and see if it's actually true, but go ahead.
So what I was trying to say is that most people in the fitness community, in the fitness industry, anybody who's looking to get in shape, no. If you want to use the word dumb, but I'm going to use the word, uninformed, okay? Because most people don't. That's why we
see. This is you covering up the assholeness.
Yes,
you're using the politically correct term.
I'm going to be very politically correct here. No, but it's the same thing. The reason we do this podcast is anybody who's uninformed, and the fact is, with so much misinformation, almost everybody's uninformed because they're confused as hell with all the bullshit they put out there. So most people in the fitness industry or somebody who just wants to get in shape is misinformed, and they don't know what it actually takes to get in shape. They think, okay, if somebody says that this magic pill works or this hoverboard and you twist on this hoverboard and you lose weight, then they're going to believe it and they're going to buy it. You know what I mean? If we came here on this podcast every day and we said, what you need to do is you need to buy whatever X product, and we're selling X product. We'll call it, I don't know, we'll call it the hoverboard. Okay, so we sell the hoverboard on New York Muscle Radio. And when you go on this, it burns 5 times as many calories as it does when you go outside and you walk. You ride the hoverboard instead. You know how many people would buy it? If we convince them that it actually burned 5 times the amount of calories, that's how the fitness industry is. And that's exactly what me and you don't do. And, you know, that's the reason we're not doing $9 million a year in sales.
All right, guys, so we're selling now hoverboards on this. No, but I don't know. That just really blew my mind. And then I was watching another episode again. It takes my daughter forever to go to bed. And this one, they were selling coffee cubes. So I don't know what it was exactly. It was just it was coffee basically in like a sugar cube type of a shape. And two like Zoid guys. They what the hell are they called? They said they were hacking. They're hackers, not like internet hackers, but like the intermittent fast. They fast for 36 hours, they said, because they believe it's going to make them live longer. They call themselves a hacker. I have to
I've never
double
heard
check
of that before.
Whatever, but apparently there's like a group of people like they're life hackers, and they go and they find these things that like whatever trick your life.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they life hacking, like basically like all these like how to hack life. Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah, hippies basically.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was this coffee cube thing, and it's basically like coffee in the cube, and you eat the coffee, and that's like better for you, and it has like more, I don't know, more cognitive functions. I don't know, whatever the hell they were going on. They did $1 million in sales, dude. I actually have a real coffee product that actually gives you 10 grams of protein that these Zoids probably don't even know what protein is, and they did $1 million in sales with that in 8 months.
Well, apparently that means there's a lot more hippies around than educated fitness people.
I don't know, but did you look at in the image I posted on my Instagram page at AB Fitness, the one of us at 58 on iTunes?
Yeah.
Do you see what was before us? Yoga Today. What the fuck is that? Who's going to listen to a podcast about yoga?
I don't know. It's a good question. Don't you need to watch yoga?
Don't you do yoga?
No, I'm saying to do yoga, you have to watch it, right? You can't. I guess you could listen to it. Like they could tell you what to do.
But I don't think a podcast on that. How many episodes do they have?
I don't know. Maybe it's like a daily yoga routine, and it's just the audio and tells you what to do.
All right.
That actually is a good idea. We should start doing that.
All right, guys. Now today, hamana, we're gonna stretch downward dog. Hamana. Wait, what did Tony Horton do on our podcast? Hey yo. Oh God, I don't know. So whatever, guys. So we tell you the truth, and we're not millionaires by any stretch of the word. So.
That's what we get, guys.
Dude, we had a listener question. I didn't get a chance to pull it up. Can you pull it up on your phone while I give the gist? So, guys, we're going to move on to the listener question of the day. If you guys have a question you'd like us to answer, you could submit it on our website, newyorkmuscleradio.com, says listener question, or you can call your question in. The phone number is listed on that site, just in case you didn't get the phone number, but the phone number is 508-687-2534. Call in, guys. Don't be shy. We'll play your voice online, on the webs, on the internets. You got the question, big guy?
Okay. This one looks pretty long, so this is probably the right one, right? Anyway, let's get to it. So it says, what's up, Anthony and Pete? About 2 weeks ago, I discovered your show and have listened to nearly every episode already. I'm a big fan of your show and fully support and respect the no-fluff style you guys are putting out. I actually have 2 questions today, one regarding training and one regarding nutrition. The first is, when I perform my sets, I usually move up in weight and down in reps. For example, it would look something like first set of 10 reps at 135, second set of 8 reps at 145, third set of 6 reps at 155, etc. This is the way I was always taught to train for football in my high school days. I wanted to know if it's better to stay at the same weight for all my sets or to move up in weight each set as I am now.
That was the whole question?
That's part 1 of the question.
Okay.
I guess we can answer that. You want to answer that first? It's pretty long here.
Well, I mean, I'll answer very simple, very short and simple. So thanks for the question, man. We appreciate it. So first of all, yeah, you're better off doing straight volume across the board. You're going to get in more volume doing that. So if you did, whatever, for argument's sake, 135 for 10 across the board for 3 sets, you know, you would get more volume as opposed to if you did 135 for 10, 145 for 8, and then 155 for 6. You would get more volume across the board if you did 135 for 10. And volume is going to be the stimulus for growth there. So just stay right across the board with that.
Yeah, and then if you want to do your heavy work, like your sets of 4 to 6 reps, you can always do that on another workout, and then just do your sets of 4 to 6 across the board.
Yeah, just don't forget to be progressive with your weights. So if you're going straight across the board, just make sure you're adding more reps, adding more weight, or adding another set. And the same thing with your heavy day. Just keep it the same. Try to get 3 sets or 4 sets or whatever of the same rep scheme across the board, and be progressive with that.
Okay. All right. So he's got one more question, which is this is the one on nutrition. So he says, my second question is, when breaking down your macros, how should the average percentages be? I recently started getting serious with nutrition and I'm a newbie. I started with protein at 45%, carbs at 35%, and fat at 20% to equal 100% for the day. I thought this was a good start, but after hearing you guys talk about some of your macros on the show, I hear you guys are more carb dominant and less protein than fats. I know fats should be the least, but I'm confused on whether protein or carbs should be higher. I have a good amount of muscle, but put on body fat on top of that for my years of bad nutrition. What percentages would be best for my goal to lose body fat while maintaining and building muscle?
You want to answer it?
Yeah, so basically he's asking at what percentage you should put your protein, carbs, and fat. And I think I speak for both of us when I say that, we're not a huge fan of sticking to a set percentage, okay? That could be a good guideline for where to start. But generally the way we like to do it is, depending on your goals, it's going to be a little different if you're burning fat or if you're building muscle. But you want to set your baseline macros for each first. So we always start with protein first. And the best way to do that is to set it as a very general rule of thumb, anywhere between 1 and 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight, okay? Then, once you put it there, you want to set your fat, because protein and fat are definitely going to be the two most important first, and then you're going to fill in the rest with carbs. So now for fat, on the higher end, I would say anywhere from 0.4 to 0.35 to 0.5 grams per pound of body weight is ideal for fat. 0.5 is a little bit high, but again, it depends on what your goals are. Then fill in the rest of your calories with carbs. That's usually the way we like to start everybody. And then eventually, if you get your calories up higher, you want to keep adding carbs in to the point where you might start out with less carbs than protein, but later your carbs will be higher than protein. So it's not a static thing where it's a static percentage. So at certain times in my diet, my protein might be higher than my carbs. At other times, my carbs might be higher. But as long as you have those minimums in place, then you can get a little creative with adjustments.
Yeah, exactly. We go over this in detail in Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code. So that might be something that may be worth your while picking up, because we'll explain to you exactly what you need for your body type and how to go about it and setting it up. But yeah, I don't track percentages. I don't even care what the percentages actually are. I just focus on my grams per day, and that's what I usually focus on.
Yeah, and then don't worry about keeping it static. Like I said, that's a thing I think a lot of people pay too much attention to, and it could actually hold you back a little bit.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, today's episode, again, we bring it back to Steroids 101. This is an interesting episode because it's out of our realm. So it's interesting to have Scott on here and our fellow bodybuilding podcaster from Bodybuilding Nerds Radio. He's an awesome guy. And give this one a listen. Let's take this short commercial break, big guy, and let's come right back.
But I'll tell you what, when I'm done, my biceps are humongous. Humongous. Like that, bang!
My name is Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'm the host of New York Muscle Radio podcast. My arms have been a weak point for years. When I started training, my arms measured 11 inches. Even after many years of hardcore training, nothing would get them to grow. With the help of my co-host, Big Pete, we set out on a mission to gain 1 solid inch to my arms in 12 weeks.
In the greatest experiment of all.
12 weeks later, this program finally helped me get 18-inch arms. The 12-week arm experiment, the ultimate arm growth program, ebook, the audio book, and the workout video. Pick up your copy now on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down that tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
Nice, Pete.
What?
I saw you checking out that girl's butt.
What? I was just checking out her yoga pants.
Pete.
I was thinking you'd look really good in yoga pants.
Uh-huh.
I was like trying to check out what brand it was. Like I was looking at her form on deadlifts. They were all messed up.
Do you think she has a nicer butt than me?
Well, it definitely doesn't look like a pancake.
Did you just call my butt a pancake?
Well, I mean,
What can I do?
you gotta try New York Muscle Radio's Glutylicious program.
Glutylicious.
Yeah, you'll finally get a celebrity booty, like all the other girls following the program.
Fine, I'll do it. But don't get jealous when other guys check out my glutylicious ass.
Glutylicious, your guide to getting a celebrity booty in 12 weeks. Now available exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
Want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. Honey, your coffee's undrinkable.
It's pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee. You know, the girls down at the office make better coffee on their hot plates.
And he didn't even kiss me goodbye. You know, if I could just make a decent cup of coffee, I could relax.
So relax. Why don't you try Coffeen from BuyProteinCoffee.com? Tastes good as fresh perked,
Good as fresh perk.
and it has protein, 10 grams per scoop.
I'll surprise Harvey for his birthday tonight.
Hey, great coffee.
Doesn't it taste good as fresh perk?
Better.
Better than those girls make at the office.
Honey, their coffee can't hold a candle to yours.
Coffeen, the world's only instant coffee that's fortified with muscle-building protein. Visit BuyProteinCoffee.com now.
Hey guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I just wanted to announce that my brand new personal training facility is now open. I'm currently taking on new clients in the Long Island, New York area. If you're interested in working with the best personal trainer in the business, head on over to abfitnesstrainer.com and sign up for your free consultation. Then you can understand why bodybuilding.com has named me Personal Trainer of the Month. All right, guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 89. So welcome, everyone, to this podcast. Today's podcast is going to be kind of taboo. We're going to discuss the use of performance-enhancing drugs. A general disclaimer, New York Muscle Radio, its hosts, and its guests do not condone / use or recommend the use of illegal performance-enhancing drugs. This podcast is designed for informational purposes only and should not replace the advice of a medical professional. Don't be dumb. This podcast is just for information and not intended for recommended use. So today we got on Bodybuilding Nerds Radio's very own Scott McNally. Scott, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Very good. Does it feel weird to be on the other side of it this time?
A little bit. I got to be honest. Yeah.
So how long did you guys start Bodybuilding Nerds Radio? How long you guys been up and running?
Let's see. We came up with the idea, I'm going to say like 18 months ago. And then I think it's been a little bit over a year ago that we started the show. So yeah, we're like 50 something episodes in. We started every other week and we were going to stick with that. But you know what it's like with podcasting. It gets kind of addictive and you got to get that next one out. So we went to every week pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, we're missing VJ today, but we'll shout him out and we'll get him on the next one when we do the big collab.
I would love that, and he will too. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, so Big Pete, I forgot to introduce you, buddy. I'm so excited for Scott and have another podcast guy on here, and I forgot all about you.
Yeah, I'm here, man. And speaking of, getting the next podcast out, that's probably why you forgot, because you're always contacting me, telling me, let's get another podcast out. But tonight we have a special one because this is a good collaboration we have on here. So
Scott, let's start this off. So let's tell everyone a little bit about you and your background. So give us a little bit more information on you.
Well, I've been bodybuilding for about 10 years. And first of all, I want to say, the topic tonight, I'm definitely, I would not consider myself an expert. I don't think, there's really anybody out there that is. If they claim to be an expert, you might, want to think twice about listening to them. But
Oh, you mean Boston Lloyd and Rich Piano are experts?
well, yeah, I'm not going to name any names, but nonetheless, I want to put that out there first. But I'm just a guy like you guys that loves bodybuilding, and I started it years and years ago when I was a kid. And not to bore you with that old story, because I think we all have similar veins where we probably all watched Pumping Iron at some time and then got hooked, right?
What movie was that?
Pumping Iron? I know you guys are Arnold fans. I've been listening to your shows. So yeah, I started competing in 2009, and that really just kind of sealed the deal for me. And I just loved being able to control my body and loved learning the science behind that. And I've been doing that ever since. It's just been like you guys. It's every aspect of my life. I love the learning the science behind it, and watching how things change. And I've been lucky enough to help a lot of other people reach their goals too. And that's given me a really awesome opportunity to see how other people's bodies work. Because, I know you guys are trainers, and as you guys know, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. No two people are going to respond the same to a particular training plan or a particular nutrition plan. And the same thing goes with supplementation.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned like the science behind things, and every time I hear you guys talk about something on your podcast, Bodybuilding Nerds Radio, I always get I feel like a beginner again. Like, wow, what does that mean? What does that do? So that's why I was so excited to have this one, because I had known nothing about this. I have no experience. I know zero. So this is gonna be brand new for me. And let's start this right off. So we're gonna start with the first question here, and this is a perfect question for me because I'm assuming everyone's natural all the time. So
okay.
We all have our own opinions and speculations, but what percentage do you think of the average gym goer is on juice? I happen to think everyone's always natural, and my co-host is always telling me he's not natural. He's on. He's not natural. He's on.
I think I agree with Pete. Yeah. I'm actually there was a time when I felt that way too, and then I would start finding out. Like, I'd talk to somebody and I'd think, oh yeah, this guy's got potential, and maybe if he got his diet right and he started training more consistently, then he could do something with his physique. And then I find out later that he's like taking a bunch of Anadrol and sustenance and everything else. So gosh, I think that in today's modern day, with the availability of gear, it's probably, it depends on the gym, but probably pretty high. I'd maybe say 75%. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I know that number sounds crazy, but when you start to talk to more people, it starts to add up. And I think more so now, even in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, that number has gotten a lot higher.
Yeah, I'd agree, man. Absolutely.
Crazy. All right, so what is the very basic definition of a steroid, and what is the most common one used?
I think that the basic definition of it, well, we're talking about anabolic steroids here, and what they're going to do is increase the amount of protein that's going to be going into the muscle. The idea of something that's anabolic is more protein entering the muscle cell than is leaving it. So it's simple as that. And a lot of times I think that guys that don't know that, they just think, well, these guys who are on steroids, they just take this stuff and then all of a sudden they just blow up and they're just sitting on the couch not doing anything, where I have to work really hard. But the thing is that if you're not feeding your body, basically the steroid's going to allow you to work harder, and you're going to be able to push your body further and recover, faster. And I don't mean to come off like an advocate or anything, but they do work. So that's maybe my definition. And then, as far as popularity goes, I'll go with maybe what's the smartest thing to start with. And once again, this isn't like any type of a recommendation, but as far as it goes, a testosterone would be the number one thing, because all anabolic steroids are derived from the male hormone testosterone. They're all derivatives, and none of them will work the way testosterone does. So I don't know how deep you want me to go into this here right now. If this is this a small question or?
well, my next question is, and you kind of actually kind of touched on a little bit. So what is a very basic definition? What does a very basic beginner steroid cycle look like? So you could go in as far as you want, as deep as you want. I want the listeners to really understand everything, kind of pick your brain here.
Okay. Well, this cycle would be, first of all, for a male, because steroids can be used by females, but they have to do things totally different. Most steroids are going to have really bad side effects for women. So, this information is not for them. That's a totally different conversation. And as far as who should use it, I would say it would be somebody who has already stopped growing. Anybody who's like 18, 19 years old, they think that they've already reached their max height. So, somebody at that age, they think that they're going to be fine to start gear. But some of the long bones, like the clavicles, can still be growing, for another few years. And sometimes, from what I understand, an excessive amount of estrogen can prematurely close those growth plates. So this information is also for the male that's going to be like 22, 23 years old. So there's no risk of any kind of premature bone closure. And as I was saying before, testosterone would be my suggestion. And I would suggest to use a long-acting testosterone, like testosterone enanthate or acipinate. And along with that, you're going to want to combat any type of side effects. Now, testosterone is going to break down into two metabolites, dihydrotestosterone or DHT, or estrogen. And these two things can cause issues, hair loss, as well as like enlarged prostate for the DHT. And for estrogen, that's the side effects that we all hear about, the gynecomastia and stuff like that, water gain and stuff. So you would want to use an estrogen controlling agent, something that would stop the aromatization, like a Arimidex. And that would be run through the cycle along with this testosterone. And then you wouldn't have to worry about having excessive estrogen causing problems. So that would be my compounds that I would suggest. And then I would suggest to follow that up when you're finished with a post-cycle therapy using Clomid, 100 milligrams, starting 2 weeks after the cycle is over, and continuing on for a week continuing on, I'm losing my thought here, 100 milligrams for a week, followed by 50 milligrams for 3 weeks.
So now, another thing that's interesting, because I feel like as far as if you were to research all this stuff online, you'll get so many different answers as to what you should and shouldn't be doing. You'll get people that say, oh, you should be doing, be running these anti-estrogens to, trying to stop any type of conversion. You should be taking post-cycle therapy. Then you'll get people that say, you should be doing something like taking HCG throughout the whole cycle to prevent it from even happening, versus trying to restart your natural testosterone production afterwards. What do you feel about prevention versus, trying to recover afterwards?
Okay, well, the anti-estrogens, the anti-aromatizing agents and the HCG are working in two completely different ways. And I would suggest using both of them. Neither of them are going to hurt you on cycle. You definitely want to control the estrogen conversion during the cycle, and it's not going to have anything to do with the shutdown. The shutdown occurs because once you introduce any steroid into your body is going to identify that. It's going to see that there's plenty of androgen. So it's going to reduce its own natural production. And over time, that production is eventually going to shut off. And that's why when you finish the cycle, you want to use the post-cycle therapy in order to kind of kickstart things and restart it. But you can use HCG while you're on the cycle it's kind of, think of it as like a what do they call that? The stuff that you would spray into a carburetor to get an engine to turn over, like the I can't remember the name of that stuff, but it would be like a quick start type thing just to get the engine to turn over, and then ideally your body would be able to continue producing on its own after the cycle has been completed.
So what about oral steroids? A lot of people, and I know a little bit about this, that oral steroids are definitely more toxic on the liver because they have to pass through the liver versus taking an injection. But what if someone wanted to use just orals? What if they were like petrified of needles for whatever reason and they just decided on that? Would that be a beneficial thing to start with, or no?
That's a good question. And to be totally honest, I'm kind of on the fence with that one now, because in the past I would have said no. I would have staunchly said just use testosterone. And the reason is, like I said, once you begin taking an anabolic steroid, your body will read that and it'll begin reducing its own natural production of testosterone. So let's say somebody they were going to decide to do like a cutting cycle, and they wanted to throw in just 50 milligrams of Winstrol for 8 weeks. And they might feel fine for the first couple of weeks, and there's no testosterone taken whatsoever with this cycle. They might feel fine for the first couple of weeks, but after a while, your natural production will begin to decrease. And Winstrol isn't going to do all the things that testosterone does for our body that makes us feel virile and, male, basically. So you could start experiencing things like erectile dysfunction and start to feel like all the signs of low testosterone, get lethargic and tired and weak. Even though you're on this steroid, you could get all these terrible side effects that are the opposite of what you want, basically. So my thought has always been to always start, and that's the reason I suggest testosterone for the first cycle, because that way you have an idea of how testosterone works in your body. You understand this, and then from there you would build the cycle. So in the future, you want to do a cutting cycle, you do testosterone plus the Winstrol, or you want to do a bulking cycle, the testosterone plus, a bulking agent. But just using an oral on its own, it's not something that you're really going to get any kind of lasting gains. And just in, my opinion, what I've seen, and not to mention, like I said, you're going to potentially deal with, more long-term issues while on the cycle without having testosterone in your body. Now, that being said, maybe you can get away with 6 weeks of, an oral, and maybe that'll be fine. And maybe that will be okay for a first cycle, but long term, if you're going to continue doing this stuff, you got to be responsible, because like you had said, it can cause liver issues. And not only that, the thing that a lot of people don't mention on the message boards is the effect that orals have on your cholesterol. They can be terrible. Like everybody always says, like, Anavar is a real mild drug, but Anavar can be terrible on your cholesterol. And so if you're running these cycles, throughout the year, and you're screwing up your cholesterol time and time again, eventually that's going to have an impact. So if you don't have the responsibility to learn how to administer a clean, sterile injection of a medication, then maybe you don't have the maturity to get into this stuff to begin with.
Yeah, and I liked how you explained, starting with something and then maybe adding to it, because it seems like a lot of people jump right off the bat with combining something. They say, "What's your cycle? What's your stack? What are you combining?" And it's always, take a testosterone with maybe a D-ball, or take testosterone with growth hormone or something like that. And to me, it always seemed that if you were going to start experimenting with something, it would make most sense to just pick one, use it, see how your body responds, and then, try combining it with something else, or use the other thing. How do you feel about people who kind of jump right off the bat with, combining two different drugs that they have no experience with?
That's a great question, and I like, you've got a very logical thought there, and that's the way I think that we should always.
He overthinks everything. So.
Well, I like it. It's logical, and that's the way we should do things. If you start taking 3 different compounds at once, and let's say you're doing like a test deca D-ball, and all these things are creating a whole host of potential side effects coming from different angles, and they might need to be remedied in different ways. So you start getting an issue, you don't know where it's coming from. Now, if you start with the testosterone alone and you run that cycle, and by the way, an average cycle might be 250 to 500 milligrams, from what I hear. You'll understand after that 12-week period, how your body responds to this product, and then from there, if you wanted to add something in next, then you could definitely see, what the result would be. And if an issue comes up, you can more likely identify, where it was coming from. Plus, you can, my theory is always to get the most out of the least amount possible, because eventually you're going to have to add more. You're going to start out with what works in the first cycle is not going to work 7 cycles down the road when you're 80 pounds bigger. So you're always going to have to add a little bit more. You'll find you'll want to add a little bit more as you go down the road. So if you're starting with like 3 different products and you're up to like 1.5 grams, 2 grams of gear in your first cycle, where are you going to be at 5 cycles down the road?
It kind of reminds me of like training, just training in general. And as a beginner, you always want to do more and more and more. But then eventually your body gets used to that stimulus. And if you're doing X amount of volume now, if you want to improve, you're going to have to do more than that. So it's always better to start with less and then work your way up. So I agree with that 100%.
Absolutely. And I've heard it said, if you had a headache, and you could take a couple Tylenol, then what would be the benefit of taking a couple Tylenol plus a couple Advil, plus a couple aspirin?
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, you're not gonna gain that much more weight by having stacked 3 different compounds. Your body's only gonna grow as fast as it will grow, and you can force it so much, but there's a limit to that. So, take what you can get out of the least amount possible, and give yourself room to continue to grow and add more, and also save your money too. You don't want to. Stuff gets expensive, so.
So let's shift a little bit now. I know growth hormone. So what is growth hormone? And obviously, what's the difference between a growth hormone and steroids?
Okay, growth hormone is totally different. It's a protein peptide. So growth hormone is, and I will say too that everything you read online, it looks like it's the fountain of youth. I don't know if you guys have read much about it, but everybody always says it's the game changer, and that growth hormone is what turns people into freaks, and it's what's created all these guts, on the stages and all that. I highly disagree, and I know a lot of people in the industry that would also disagree with that. Growth hormone is a protein peptide that basically works in a total different fashion from anabolic steroids. Instead of expanding the muscle cell, it will replicate muscle cells. So it will work well in conjunction with an anabolic steroid because you're now replicating muscle cells with the growth and then using the anabolic to expand those cells and mature them.
So what's the difference between that and then regular steroids as far as like combining them? Like, do you normally stack them together? When?
Well,
so how do you use growth hormone, I guess, is my question.
Okay. Anybody who's listening to this information probably doesn't need to worry about that for a really long time. The benefits of growth hormone compared to anabolics are extremely minor. Now, your benefit as far as side effects goes, it's not going to shut down the hypothalamus pituitary axis that makes your body produce testosterone. That's not going to be affected. But at the same time, you're not going to get like massive muscle gains from it. Using growth hormone is something that you would add into the program after you've already been an established, anabolic user that has already gotten, a lot of progress has been made, and maybe now you want to do a contest and it's 20 weeks away. That would be a good time to add your growth hormone in. You can use it in cycles, and if so, you would want to use it longer periods, like 4 months or 6 months, or really, you don't have to come off a growth hormone. But the benefits of it are going to be really minor too. The cost is really high. The ability to find good quality growth hormone is real difficult. If you're paying for pharmacy grade growth hormone, we're talking thousands of dollars a month. So the effect of that is still going to be minor. You might have a few outliers that will respond very well to it. But those people will, as somebody had once said this to me, so this is not my own thought, those people would probably have responded very well to steroids too.
Yeah, and one thing I've always found interesting about growth hormone is, I usually hear the same exact thing you're saying in terms of it having no comparison to anabolics for muscle building. But the interesting thing about it is, like you said, it causes the growth of new muscle cells. So in theory, it would sound like here he goes overthinking already. Just adding in growth hormone could potentially, have the potential to grow more muscle than you already are because you're growing new muscle cells.
I hear you, like being able to push beyond your genetics, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I guess that's true, but to do that, I personally haven't seen that with anybody that I've known. or worked with. I haven't seen that in my own life. I haven't seen it happen. And maybe that's true for some of the pros out there, and I've known a lot of guys that have run really massive really massive doses, 10 units plus a day, and have seen, not the benefits that you would expect. So yeah, I think in theory, yes, but it's with you guys not having used the stuff, let me compare this to like supplements, over-the-counter supplements. You hear like this new supplement that comes out and you hear how awesome it is and all these things that it can do. And you rush out and you spend like $59.99 on the stuff. And guess what? It's like a month later, are you that much different,
Yeah, I stopped doing that like 10 years ago.
Good.
Yeah, Celtec didn't work for me either, so...
Right. So yeah, it's kind of like the same thing, really, honestly. I mean, yes, in theory, that's what it does. And I guess to an extent, maybe you'll see that, but the results, I'm not a big believer. It's good for fat loss. I'll tell you that much. I think you'll probably get a little bit tighter using growth. If you're doing like a contest prep and you're using like thyroid hormone, which can make you real flat, I find that growth will make you fuller. So it does have its benefits. You might get a little bit leaner, a little bit tighter. Your skin might tighten up a little bit faster. Overall, your recovery might be a little bit better. Those are the things that I could say I could see from growth hormone. But as far as like night and day size, no.
All right, so let's shift again now, because I know there's all these different kinds of things that you could use. You could use an oral steroid, you could take an injection, you could use growth hormone. Let's touch on insulin a little bit. So talk a little bit about it. What is insulin? What is insulin used for? And I guess when would you add that in?
That's a good one. Yeah, insulin, for all the listeners, this is something that is one of the most dangerous drugs used in bodybuilding. It's something that if you use it, you really want to do your homework on it first, because
my dad's diabetic, actually. I'm not to cut you off, Scott, but it's extremely dangerous. And he's type 1, so he's relying on his insulin.
Sure.
So he had told me a while, even before I was even bodybuilding, he's like, just even a little bit of this, I can kill someone with this. So
sure.
You're not even kidding how dangerous it can be if used incorrectly.
Yeah. So the key is understanding, the half-life of your insulin, and understanding how many carbs you're going to need to eat for your dose, and then being able to maintain that. So, for most people, it should be a no-brainer. If you already have done all your homework and you're that advanced, you've already gone through anabolics, and maybe now you've added growth hormone several years later, and then a couple of years after that you decide to add the insulin, then you're probably already at a point where you should be able to manage your carbohydrates each couple hours. But insulin, it's a storage hormone basically, and it's super anabolic. So the idea behind it in bodybuilding is to supplement a tiny amount to allow you to store even more carbohydrates. So maybe, and I know that a lot of guys are just, able to just shove in massive amounts of carbs, especially with like the intra-workout carbs that the guys are doing now. And like Milos's intra-workout insulin protocols with it, that's kind of the route I'm seeing a lot. So there's guys that are doing like 200 carbs while they're training and, using insulin to help absorb all that.
Wow. And does it really make that much of a difference?
Yeah, that one does.
Wow.
It makes a big difference. What it makes a difference is in glycogen retention in the muscle. So you can dramatically change your cosmetic look in a very short time with insulin. You can also get really, really fat with it. So, the people I think that could benefit most from insulin are your ectomorphs, because these are guys that, have a hard time putting on fat no matter what they do. If you're a guy that's naturally going to be fat and you have a hard time keeping the fat off, insulin could destroy your physique real quick.
So obviously, when using insulin, you have to be using something else with it. Obviously, you can't just use insulin as a standalone type of a thing.
Really, you could. you could use insulin on its own, and you would just upregulate the amount of carbs and nutrition that were being stored in your muscles. But yeah, ideally, you would want to combine it. I mean, you're going to get more benefit if then you're also using an anabolic, and then I guess the trifecta would be, the anabolic, the growth hormone, and the insulin together. That would be like the trifecta. And if there was anything close to like a magic cocktail, I guess that would be it. Because if nothing else, if the growth isn't going to increase the muscle cells at the effect we were talking about that we would like to see, at least it's going to help keep you leaner while you're using the insulin.
So now that we've covered the basic testosterone, some orals, insulin, and growth hormone, let's talk side effects. So what are some basic side effects you could see from, I guess, one of each? I mean, what's some side effects that people have seen? What's something you should be looking out for? Like, tell us all the negative stuff about it now.
Yeah, I think that if you do your homework and you go into it, knowing the potential side effects, you can, and also let me mention too, side effects are going to be really dose related. So that's another thing about sensible dosing. And when we're talking about stacking things together, the more you're taking, the more chance there is for side effects. So, if you go into it sensibly and you have an understanding of what potential side effects could come up, then, you have a better chance of negating them. I'd say, number one would be probably acne and oily skin. Those are very common things, and they can be really bad for somebody who's already predisposed to acne. That's the thing, is that I feel like any of the side effects, or a lot of the side effects you get, are things that you are already predisposed to. So, the conversion to DHT can make your skin oilier, and as a result, you can get more clogged pores, more oils getting pushed out through the sebaceous gland, and, you get more cystic acne. It can be bad. Also with the DHT would be hair loss. So if you're predisposed to hair loss, it's, there's going to be a potential. Look at all your pro bodybuilders. How many of them are bald? But then you got your Jay Cutlers too. The guy's still got a full head of hair.
So actually, I don't want to cut you off, but that's a good point, because I was speaking to somebody about this, and the common trend with baldness seems to be from testosterone. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. One of the metabolites, like we were saying, is DHT, and the DHT will basically choke out the hair follicle. So yeah, that's what causes baldness for men. It can be negated using like a DHT blocker, like Propecia. But then you're dealing with another drug, and that drug has its own set of side effects. And you don't want to choke out all the DHT, because DHT also plays critical roles in reproduction and reproduction health. So, we want to have that stuff in our body. It's a powerful androgen. We don't want to lose DHT. On the other side of the spectrum, estrogen can be controlled, like we were saying, using an aromatase inhibitor. Would be the number one way to do that, so that you don't let the the testosterone convert to estrogen in the first place. And then you could keep that under wraps. Now, the only way you would really know if your estrogen was under control would be to go in and have blood work. If you don't have a doctor that you trust, then you could go online. There's places like Private Labs MD, and they do very reasonable health screening. You can order labs there and then just have them filled at a local clinic. But yeah, so you want to keep your estrogen level in the normal range. You don't want to wipe it out completely, because if you wipe out estrogen, you'll have side effects from that as well. So estrogen-related side effects would be the main two I can think of would be fat gain, gynecomastia, which is basically estrogen trying to create a female breast, which is the last thing that we want on our physiques, and water retention.
So pretty much it seems like the media always just slanders steroids, and how steroids are this and this, how they're so bad. And it, basically from what I'm getting from you is that just like everything else, there's side effects to everything. And as long as like you said, do your homework and you're smart about it, and you don't, overdo anything, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, I can't say you'll be fine. There's risks with everything we do. But yeah, the key is to monitor your health and be responsible and get lab work done. while we're on the topic of lab work, I'd also like to mention that for anybody that was considering running an anabolic steroid cycle, the number one thing I would do first is get your testosterone checked. You want to have a baseline reading so that you know what your normal levels are. That way, when you do run a cycle, after you've come off, you'll know when you've recovered. If otherwise, you'll never know what your baseline levels were. So you get your levels checked, you do your cycle, you run that, and then afterwards, when you feel like you've returned to normal, get them checked again, and you'll know for sure.
What's up, guys? It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua. Did you think I would let my co-host Big Pete make all the commercials? Welcome to the New York Muscle Radio podcast. If you want to learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner while eating what you want, pick up your copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code, now available in audiobook version, exclusively on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get back to the show.
If you don't mind if I back up for just a minute on side effects, I just wanted to mention too that red blood cells can get elevated. You can also get cholesterol issues. You can get liver problems, kidney problems, because mainly kidney problems are due to elevation of blood pressure, which is often a result of water retention. So these are also reasons that you get your blood work done, because those things are not going to happen overnight, but you might not notice them if you don't get labs done. So you could continue using steroids on and off for years, not knowing you had these problems. And then all those terrible health things that the media talks about will come up. So you get the lab work done, you watch it, and then you'll get flags well years in advance before you have kidney problems. And you'll know, okay, there's a problem here. And then you can either decide to do something to fix it or stop using steroids or find another way. So I just wanted to throw that in.
All right, so today's bodybuilding physiques are different, way different than the Arnold's era. Now, we mentioned pumping iron in this earlier, so it's a good tie in here. So what do you attribute these results to? How come it seems like no matter how many drugs people take nowadays, they still can't achieve the bodies like the golden era of bodybuilding?
Man, I think that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you feel like the guys from that era were better?
I mean, were we comparing Arnold to the guys nowadays?
Yeah. To any other era.
I mean, I think that the guys in the golden era, I mean, it's more of an attainable physique for people. I feel like for the average person, they would want to look like, I'd rather look like, I mean, me personally too, I'd rather look like Arnold than Jay Cutler. That's my personal preference. And I don't know, I can't speak for everybody on this podcast, but, for me, that's the kind of look that I would want to go for. So, and then you could tell the difference in the physiques between Arnold and these guys. I mean, so what do you really attribute those, I guess, results to?
I think just science in general. I think that we know so much more today. Performance enhancing drug science is so much deeper now. But we know so much more in general. We have nutrition down to a science. We know exactly how many grams of carbs to put into this meal and how many grams of fat to put into this meal and how many grams of protein you need each day. And not only that, but we have like awesome supplements that you didn't have back then. Like they didn't have the weight isolates we do nowadays. And yeah, I mean, sure, there's better drugs too, and that's definitely part of what's helping people, take their physiques so far today. I think all of that, plus training science, like back then they used to have like just a couple different ways of training. And I mean, yeah, guys came out like Mike Mentzer and he had some pretty cool ideas. And, along the way, a lot of people had cool ideas and it led us up to where we are now. And there's just like so much science. There's like a way that I feel like anybody could really turn into a freak if they wanted to put the time in and learn.
Yeah, and talking more about the drugs that were available then versus now, I mean, from what I've heard, it seems like a lot of these other drugs that we'll use in combining with the anabolic steroids, stuff like the anti-estrogens and things like that, apparently they didn't have access to them back then. Is that from what you know accurate? And it seems like were they just going on and off cycle, experiencing these side effects, kind of jumping back on and, going up and down in weight?
Now, I wasn't around back then, so I can't say, but from what I've heard, and Nolvadex, I believe, was introduced in the 80s. I'm pretty positive of that. I believe, I want to say Dan Duchesne was responsible for that, but don't quote me on it. Yeah, I from what I understand though, that doses may have been lower back then. I know of a particular group of guys that were training in the mid '80s, and their their cycles were like 1 cc of testosterone every other week. And nowadays there's guys that are doing like 1 cc of testosterone every day. So, the cycles may have been different. I can't speak, I don't know how much, you've heard stories of like Arnold hardly took anything. And then I've heard stories where Arnold was taking handfuls of D-ball. So I don't know which to believe. I think that part of it, what might have worked for guys like him is just good responsiveness to drugs too. Everybody's gonna have a different response. So some people might get gyno from taking 15 milligrams of Dianabol, where Arnold might have been able to take a lot more than that. I have no idea. So yeah, I think that that there probably is a difference. There's probably a lot of differences, but that's my guess, is that dosing is probably higher now. They probably didn't need as much control then. There was no post-cycle therapy, so yeah, they just kind of came off at the end. They tapered too, I believe, from what I understand. Nowadays, guys just like cut their cycle off and stop. And they used to do like 20 milligrams. They'd take like 5 milligrams 1 week, and then 10 milligrams the next, and then 20, and then back it down. Pyramid it back down at the end.
It's just crazy to think that they achieved those kind of results, and those guys looked great back then too.
Sure.
It was only just from a handful of oral stuff, whereas nowadays orals just seem to be like something. All right, if you want to sprinkle this in, you could.
Sure.
All right. So if you had to advise someone who wanted to stay as healthy as possible but wanted to start using steroids, keeping health as a priority, what would you recommend them do and continue to do to keep their health in check? So aside from obviously getting your blood work done and monitoring your levels like that.
I mean, I think that's number one. Other things, there's you hear a lot of stuff online about like, taking psychotherapy, drugs or compounds like what do they call that stuff? They have like on psychotherapy products nowadays that are just like a big mix of things that are supposed to ensure your health.
Like those liver stuff, like those.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. I mean, like Live 52 is good, and milk thistle can be beneficial. But those things, like my doctor has told me that you could take milk thistle if you want, but the only way to really ensure your health is to go with moderate doses and go for short durations of time. So I think that's the number one way. As far as taking other supplements, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you could take. Like I would suggest using NAC at like 1,500 milligrams is a really good dose. And from what I understand, that could be beneficial for the liver and the kidneys. So that's a good one for liver health. And I've seen my numbers improve over the last year since I've been using it. And I just I buy that in a bulk powder, and I mix that with my fiber shake at the end of the night. Definitely, I always keep in my fish oil. All the things you would want to do anyway. Like, try to keep your cholesterol health good. Those things are especially important, while you're using anabolics. Make sure you're drinking plenty of fluid. Check your blood pressure. You want to make sure that you're constantly like flushing your body out. You can get more mineral retentive as you use anabolics, and so you want to keep that water intake high so that you don't start retaining fluids, and then from there start getting high blood pressure, and then from there cause kidney problems. So those are all things you can do. I'm trying to think. There's everything else that a normal person would do for health, I think the anabolic steroid user should do. Plus, like I said, do labs more often. That's really the key, and that'll give you kind of guidance on where you need to focus. If you find that your hematocrit is getting high, then you'll know what to do. Like I have a guy that I work with. He donates blood just religiously. Every time he can, he goes back in and he donates another pint. And that's because he found that he has issues with hematocrit. So by doing this, he can negate having long-term problems. So it's a matter of doing the blood work first and then responding to that.
It's funny because, just hearing you talk, it's like I feel like bodybuilders in general have a much better idea of how to control their body and are more aware of a lot more things that go on with their body than the average person does, because you never hear of like the average person like even like someone like me, I'm natural. I've never used anything, and even when I get my blood work done, I'm like looking at everything and like, what can I do to better this and that? You know,
Sure.
you're always like kind of observing that. So it's just so interesting to hear you speak about that, because it's so funny how just bodybuilders are so concerned with their health and their body. You know, more so than the average person. Like you tell the average person, oh, your cholesterol is high. Oh, okay.
Right.
You know, they don't even care.
Is there a drug for that?
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you another question, going back a little bit, because I've heard two different answers to this, and I want to get your opinion on it. And it's,
Okay.
you know, you spoke a little bit about how, you know, if you're going to take testosterone, if you're taking any anabolics, it is going to suppress your natural levels.
Sure.
And then, you know, you said it's dose dependent and how long you're on it. So there's really that, you know, that divide between people who say, you know, you can take steroids for a certain period of time, come off, then let your natural testosterone levels come back up. And then there's people that say, you know, once you start using testosterone or other anabolics, you're basically making the commitment that you're going to have to use them for life because you're messing with your natural testosterone production. So there's the possibility that it will never come back to normal.
You know, that's a great question, and I'm really glad you asked that, because I think it's one that a lot of guys don't think about when they're deciding whether or not they want to start a cycle. Usually they're thinking about, like, do I want to get these gains, you know? They're not thinking about the long-term stuff. Okay, so I would say, you know, regardless, going in, you know, expect that could be worst case scenario. Expect that your body may shut down and that you might not be able to regain natural production afterwards. You know, that would be, I would fully expect that potential going in. Now, that doesn't mean that it would happen. You know, that being said, I don't know anybody that's ever done one cycle and quit. Usually it does become a lifestyle, because it's just a different ball game. You know, once you go from gaining a few pounds a year to, you know, gaining a few pounds a cycle or 10 pounds. And it gets really, that in itself to me, I think that can be like addictive to people. You know, they want that instant gratification of continuing to see that progress, and they don't want to see it go slower. So once you start, you know, there is a level of commitment. And now, if you're living your life, you know, on gear and then back off of it and back on it again, you know, that first cycle you might recover just fine from. But let's talk about where you're at 5 years down the road. And then what happened that one time when you decided that you were going to do a bulking cycle and then come off. But, oh my gosh, there's this contest that you decide you want to do because you looked so good. So you extended that cycle. I see this all the time. I have guys that come to me and they want to start working with me for a contest prep. But they say, well, I just finished a bulking cycle, you know, last week, but I want to start dieting now, and the show's in 16 weeks. It's like, well, you know, you didn't time that right. So these guys, they end up extending their cycles, and now they're on long term. You know, once you've been on for a year, I mean, that's going to be a tough one to recover from. You're going to lose a lot of ground coming back off. So I think that, you know, how you handle that, you know, maybe that's age related. Because for a guy like me, I'm 39 years old. Okay, so I go on HRT for the rest of my life. Big deal. There's a chance that I was probably going to go on HRT anyway. But, you know, and how old are you guys?
I'm 28.
I'm 26.
All right, so you're getting a little older, but you still got some life left in you. So, you know, for you guys or even guys that are younger than you, you know, you don't want to have to go down that road. Believe me, you know, you don't want to have to depend on any medication, you know, for the rest of your life when you're 20 something years old. And then not to mention the potential risks that could go along with that. There's potential that it could affect your ability to reproduce. So now you got that over your head. You know, these are all things that you got to think about. But I'd say that if you're a younger guy, you decide you're going to do it, you got to commit to coming off. You really do. You got to commit to coming off. And like I said, the blood work is important. You hear people tell you time on equals, time on plus post-cycle therapy equals time off. So if you're doing a cycle that's 12 weeks and then you do a post-cycle therapy that's 3 weeks, now you got 15 weeks, that you need to take at least 15 weeks off before you start. What I would say is you need to take at least 15 weeks off and then do your lab work to make sure your test is back to where it was before, and then you can go ahead and start. You know, because just because you waited that long, it doesn't mean that it did recover. So you would have to be real vigilant for any of the younger guys and stick to that. For someone who's going to be more, my age, let's say somebody who's 35 or older, well, at the age of 35, you qualify for HRT. So that realistically might be a better option. But that's something that, you have to make a decision for yourself.
So that was really good what you said, and I agree with exactly what you said. So if someone was to go on, you're going back to that scenario, someone was to go on a 15-week cycle, and then they take that 15 weeks off. Now, I know someone who's listening to this is going to think the same thing that I'm going to say. So would you actually lose all your gains during that 15? A serious question, because I'm thinking about it as we speak. But wouldn't you lose all those gains? Especially if you said, all right, I'm going to continue this. I'm hooked.
Yeah. That's a great question. Look at it as, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's basically, what you're looking at. And I guess there's going to be a lot of factors in there. If we go all the way back to the beginning of the show, my suggestion was that you take a guy that's already got some experience in the gym. I think I said that. If not, I meant to say that. Take a guy that already.
I think you did.
Okay, good. You got somebody, or he already knows how to grow muscle. So if you already know how to grow muscle, that's a prerequisite. You already know how to eat right. You already know how to train. Then realistically, after your first cycle, you should be able to still maintain that muscle. It's going to get harder the bigger you get. If you gain 10 pounds, let's say your average gym goer is 200 pounds at 5. Well, we'll say he's natural. He's 175. Let's say that he's 5'8". He's 175, fairly lean, can see the outline of his abs. And then he does a cycle and he goes up to 195 on the cycle. Boom. After the cycle comes off, he loses the water retention. Let's say he's gained 10 pounds. At that weight, he's like 185. He should be able to maintain 185 pounds. Now, granted, it's going to take more nutrition than it did before because he has to eat like a 185-pound guy. But realistically, as long as he gets his testosterone back on track quickly, he should be able to hold that. At least most of it. You're not going to hold it all. And no matter what, natural muscle is just going to have a different look than enhanced muscle. Once, when you're enhanced, it has and I don't mean to make it sound better, but it's just a rounder, poppier look. And in most cases,
Yeah, that's how you could really spot if someone looks almost 3D, that's how you kind of know.
Except for VJ. He looks awesome all the time. And,
So, all right, the last question here. And I think this is going to be a good one to kind of tie everything that we're talking about in, because with some pros, there's always going to be some cons. So what are some regrets someone on steroids might have, or what have you ever heard of someone saying? Like you mentioned the whole thing with not being able to reproduce as one of them. But is there other stories, like any really negative stories or regrets that people have had that you know of?
Yeah, the blood work one. I think that's huge because people don't, that things are going so good and they look so great. They don't want to look at what's going on the inside, and that's where I think there's the most issues is that I've got a client who's getting ready for a show right now, and I asked him if he checked his blood pressure, and he said, honestly, I don't want to right now. He's closing in, and I can relate to that. It's like, well, I don't want to know at this moment, but realistically, this is your opportunity to change things, and this is the opportunity to maintain your health. So I'd say that a lot of people I've seen have had those regrets, and you know what? Some of them have paid for it with their lives. Well, look at all the guys that have passed away, and there's been a lot of deaths in the sport, in the past couple of years. It's terrible, and it doesn't have to be that way. I think that things are turning around. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about lower and lower doses, and I think that's to our benefit, and I think that that's good. Other regrets, gosh, I don't know. I think that's a big one. I think that people not coming off when they should have, that's another one that I've seen. Those are maybe the bigger ones, mostly health related.
Yeah. All right, Scott. Well, this was a great episode, man. Again, I definitely learned a lot from this, and hopefully our listeners did too. And I think this was perfect because we didn't want you to come on and almost condone the stuff. We wanted you to just give us the information, and I think you really presented it really, really well because you gave the listeners a good balance of everything. You know, you explained everything, and then you explained a lot of the negative stuff. So, like, me personally listening to this, I'm like, all right, well, this just confirms that I'm never going to use it because it just seems that it's a lot to really manage and, you know what I'm getting at. You know, there's a lot of risks, a lot more risks than there are benefits, I believe.
You know, I used to think that like I loved working with enhanced clients, that there's so much more control, and it just natural guys were boring. And then I started working with some natural guys, and I started getting some really cool results. And then I realized, you know what? This is so much, and easier isn't the word. It's just so much more simplified. Like you said, that you used the word manage. There is so much more to manage when your hormones are all over the place. You're trying to, navigate all that stuff. It's definitely a lot more simplified. You've got less options, which means that you specifically know the tools you have, and you know what tools to use. If you only have 2 tools, let's say diet and cardio, then you know that you can alter those. If you have like 6 to 7 different tools, you got to figure out which one to manage first, to get the result you're looking for. Exactly. So I agree.
All right, Scott. So where can the listeners find out more about you? Obviously, tell them about Bodybuilding Nerds Radio.
Yeah. VJ Perry and I do Bodybuilding Nerds Radio. You can find us at bodybuildingnerds.com. You can also check us out on our Facebook pages. It's VJ Perry, Scott McNally, or you can check out the Bodybuilding Nerds Facebook fan page. And then I've also started a new show. It's called Advices Radio. You can check that out on advicesradio.com, or you can check it out on iTunes. Search Advices Radio. Also, Bodybuilding Nerds is on iTunes as well. You can just search that and find us there. That's usually the best place to reach us.
All right, Scott. Well, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate your time. And like I said, hopefully the listeners got a lot out of this. But Big Pete, it's your turn, bud.
All right, guys. This is Pete and Anthony with Scott McNally, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.